Yo, what's up? This is Raquel with the Reading Roller Coaster Club, and today I'm going to talk about my April roundup. In the month of April, I read 8 books, so let's get right into it. The first book that I read, technically I read on the cusp of April because it was like the night of the last day of March, so it just kind of got grandfathered in, but that is Jennifer Hillier's Freak. Freak is a sequel to her book Creep, and I did give that book 4 stars. If you don't want a spoiler, do not read the synopsis of Freak because it does say the whodunit on the synopsis itself. But Freak immediately picks up where Creep left off, and the person who is responsible for the crimes in Creep is now in prison. And that person has a #1 psychotic fan who is protesting in the most heinous way. They are killing ladies of the night and numbering them like 1 through 10 and leaving a message for police saying if you do not free said person that this is going to continue. So we get to go along on that journey. It's just like a big cat and mouse type of thing. I would recommend it, and I would definitely recommend that you read Creep before you read Freak because it just enhances your reading experience. The next book that I read was More Days at the MORASAKI Bookshop. This is by Satochi Yagasawa. This is also a sequel to Days at the MORASAKI Bookshop, but I have not read that one, so this could be a standalone. I gave this one 4 stars. This one, I don't know why it's like hard for me to explain, but the gist of it is it follows a girl named Takako who is helping in her uncle's bookshop, and she's also trying to decide whether she wants to take over that bookshop or just let it go. In there, we get to meet all different types of people. We get to meet different types of readers. There's a lot of wisdom. It is rooted in connection, friendship, love, wisdom. Her uncle is Satoru and his wife Momoko. They also have a narrative of their little family dynamic and things that are going on in there that do play on your heartstrings. For me personally, it did. I thought it was a very cutesy book. The way I came about this book was I was just in my library. It happened to be sticking out a little bit, and I seen that it was like a tiny little novella because it's not even that long of a book. It is not even that long of a book, and so I went into this book totally blind. I had no idea what it was going to be about. I just picked it up, went for it, and do not regret it. Am I going to read the next one? Probably not, but I would recommend it. It's a short read. It takes maybe an hour tops of your time. I do recommend it. The third book out of 8 that I read was a Freida McFadden book, of course. Dear Freida, I gave this one a 3 stars, and that was Do Not Disturb. It was all right, not great. I do tend to rate specifically Freida against her own books. I don't know. That's just something I do. Anyways. Try not to get off track, try not to become a chatty Cathy, because if you've seen any of my other videos, you know that I can rant and rave and be about nothing. So this book follows a girl named Quinn Alexander. She has committed a crime, so she got to get the fuck out of town, and she finds herself, of course, her obstacle is the weather. It is like snowing. She can't go any further than she already has. So she sees this sign for the Baxter Motel, and so she decides that that's where she's gonna go. So her plan is to stay for one night and get up and keep on fucking going before the cops are on her trail. Parentheses, the cop that ends up investigating this crime is her ex-boyfriend. I don't know if that matters, but that's just a little quick fact. Okay, so at this motel, she meets the motel keeper, Nick. And she also meets a gypsy woman named Greta, who eventually tells her that she sees some dark shit in her future. There's also a character named Rosalie, which is Nick's disabled wife, who watches from a window with binoculars of all the grounds and everything that's going on. So at this point, the next day comes, Alex is ready to hit the road, and she realizes she's still in the same weather predicament. She cannot go anywhere. She decides to stay for another night. But she's thinking about the shit that Greta said. And then she's also a little skeptical about Nick because apparently there was a mysterious death of another woman at that motel. So we get to follow along with that narrative and see where that goes. And then we get other point of view of Quinn's sister. So Claudia, Quinn's sister, we get to hear her point of view because the minute that she realized that something is off and something has happened, she does not know if how much Quinn is involved. So her and Quinn had lost their parents early on, and Claudia kind of became like a mother to Quinn. So they're like thick as thieves. They're very close. She's very worried, like even in a motherly, sisterly way. And so she immediately hits the road trying to find any breadcrumb she can that's going to lead to her sister so that she can find out what the fuck happened, right? So we get to follow her journey, which leads her to the Baxter Motel, and everything just starts slowly coming together. So yeah, it's a Freida McFadden book. I'm always going to recommend her and Alice Feeney because I feel like their books are hit or miss. There's no gray area. You either like them or you don't, but they're always fast-paced. They always have a good twist at the end, regardless of how the book went. So yes, I definitely would recommend. Again, I gave that one 3 stars. The next book that I read was a YA. It was No Place Left to Hide by Megan Lally. I did give this book 3 stars, but I need you guys' help. So leave in the comments because I felt a little bad for giving it 3 stars because it is YA and I feel like I'm not the intended audience for this book. And I kind of just rated it like I would rate any other book that I read. So let me know, when y'all read YA, do y'all rate them as any other book, or do y'all take in consideration that maybe you're not the intended audience? Because I kind of low-key feel bad, but I'm going to stick with my rating of 3 stars. But yeah, so the reason why I picked this one up is because last month, in the month of March, I read That's Not My Name by Megan Lally, and I love that book. That was such a good book. That would be such a good movie. It was a bit predictable to me, but nevertheless, I was still enthralled in the book and shocked at the end, if that makes sense, even though I kind of anticipated some of it. So yeah. But if you don't know, No Place Left to Hide by Megan Lally is kind of like Pretty Little Liars meets Mean Girls meets I Know What You Did Last Summer. So this picks up with a girl named Brooke who is a senior in high school who is like planning her whole life out. But before that, a year prior, her and some friends were out partying as teenagers do, and a tragic incident happened to where a girl named Claire lost her life. Fast forward now, it's the year later, and Brooke out of nowhere starts getting this mysterious text messages saying that they know what happened. Basically, I know what you did last summer type shit, right? So, you know, Brooke is dealing with this all alone. Like, she doesn't want to burden, I guess, anybody with it. She's kind of scared and kind of worried, but she kind of wants to stay focused on her future. Like, you know, if I get the hell out of town, then I can leave this all behind me type shit. But one night, her and her best friend are out for a drive, and this truck starts aggressively tailgating them, and she's forced to come clean and say that she had been getting harassed with these messages. So we just get to go on the journey of that night and see how it unfolds. At the same time, we're getting alternate chapters of the past and seeing how the tragedy unfolded as well. And then it all just kind of meets in the middle. Again, I gave it 3 stars, but I don't know. Just let me know in the comments. Like, if it's a YA and you're not YA, do you still rate these books as you would any other? Do you take it into consideration that it is for a younger audience? The next book that I read was an Alice Feeney book. I gave this 3.5 stars. It was Beautiful Ugly. Beautiful Ugly follows Grady Green. He is a writer, and it starts off with him. I believe he made like the New York bestseller list, and so he wants to share this good news with his wife. So he calls her to tell her this, and in the midst of their conversation, he hears her step on her fucking brakes, and she's like, yo, there's somebody in the street. And he's like, call emergency services, do not get out the car. But this is a thriller book. So homegirl gets out the car and disappears. She's not seen for ever. She's not seen after that. Okay, she's not seen after that. Grady is a grieving Grady now. This is his boo. This is his life partner. So fast forward, the book picks up a year later, and Grady's agent is like, dude, I'm sorry you're still grieving, but you need to get your shit together because you signed a 2-book deal and you've only delivered 1 and you've used all the fucking money. Like, you know? So she proposes an opportunity for Grady. So there was an older writer named Charles who passed away, but Charles was known to go off on this island and write, but he still has his cabin there. So his agent is like, look, I have access to this cabin. I will pay your way to get to this island, to stay at this cabin until you can get a book out and you can just repay me, basically a front, right? So she's like, go grieve, go get your creative juices flowing. I need you to produce something, dude. You're putting us in a fucking pickle, right? So Grady knows he has nothing to lose. Grady, who has nothing to lose, decides to take his agent up on this offer, and he immediately hops that ferry with his dog Columbo. So all is good and great until I think he arrives at the island of Amberley, and he thinks he sees his missing wife. So we get to follow along in the book of him trying to figure out if he's tripping or if he really saw his wife, and then his time on the island. I gave it 3.5 stars because at some point I quit giving a shit about him finding his wife or figuring out if that was his wife or whatever the fuck it was. But I love the stories of the island, meeting the people there, finding the history out and stuff like that. It was so very Feeny fashion of being atmospheric. It even came with like a little map in the front that I could refer back to when he was in certain places. And normally, like with fantasy books, I get very intimidated with the maps, but this one I just was able to go right along for some reason, and I thoroughly enjoyed that aspect of the book. So yeah, again, a Feeny book I will recommend. I do recommend it. It just wasn't one of her best ones for me. The next book I read, 6 out of 8, was Listen for the Lie by Amy Tintera. I did give this 3.5 stars. Unfortunately, I didn't like it as much as I would have wanted to. It was my book club pick as well. This follows a girl named Lucy who 5 years prior was involved in a tragic accident that happened after a wedding, where her best friend was found unalive in the woods. And the whole town believes that she did it, and Lucy herself doesn't know if she had any part of it because she has some kind of like memory loss, amnesia type shit. She just kind of wants to hope she didn't have anything to do with it, right? QN Ben Owens, he runs a podcast called Listen for the Lie, where he picks up cases from towns and he interviews everybody involved, and he tries to figure out, like, is there any lies there? You know what I mean? So he goes to the small town in Texas, he interviews everybody, and little by little this case starts to unfold. There's, you know, town secrets, there's a lot of things that are revealed. We also start getting a point of view of the night of the wedding and what exactly went down. I really didn't care for it. I'm sorry. I think the 0.5 was because at some point I started listening to the audio, and that I do recommend if you're determined to read this book and want to find out for yourself. Listen to the audio, 100%. Follow along if you want, whatever, but you have to incorporate the audio somehow. It was very cool because it was kind of like it was kind of like listening to a podcast. At some point in the book, I added the audio to my reading, and it made it more enjoyable, I guess you can say. But yeah, I wouldn't recommend it. It's not a book I would recommend to somebody in my personal life. If they were to ask, you know, hey, what's a good thriller book to read, this would not be one I'd recommend. The next book I read was another Feeny book. It was His and Hers. I gave this 3.5 stars as well. This follows a news reporter named Anna Andrews and a detective named Jack Harper, and they are both put on the same case in their respective fields. It takes them back to their hometown of Blackdown, where there's a woman named Rachel who was found unalived in a park. So we start getting the his and hers point of view of these two people as they're navigating this case. To me, it felt like it dragged. It was like overly descriptive in places I didn't care for it to be descriptive in. I started wanting to like hurry up and like rush through the book and shit, and it just wasn't like interesting to me. The twist twisted, but to be completely transparent with you guys, let me premise this with saying that I would still rate this book 3.5 stars even if this incident did not happen. But let me tell you a little side story, okay? I am on Fable. If you watch any of my other videos, you know that I'm on this app called Fable. It's for readers. It's kind of like Instagram and Goodreads birthed the baby, right? And that you have Fable. Well, people can post pictures, post about books, post reviews, post thoughts, post memes, post whatever. But when you post a review, it clearly gives you an option to put if it's a spoiler. I was right at the fucking end of the book. Everything was wrapping up. I was about to hit that aha twistity twist moment. And I was scrolling on Fable and somebody was like, oh my gosh, da 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 da. Ruined it for me. Ruined it for me. I still went ahead and finished the book, but at that point it was just like, they already told me. But I don't know. I'm glad it happened at the end because I didn't have to worry about my review, but I still would have gave it 3.5 stars, but it was it was ruined for me right before I got to the point in the book. I had like a few chapters left in the book and it was ruined for me. But again, I wouldn't say that it ruined my rating, so I just want to be transparent with you guys. Yeah, the twist was untwisted prematurely for me, but I guess it is what it is. It was what it was. Would I recommend? It's a Feeny book. I would. There's also a Netflix show on it, so that's the one reason why I also wanted to read it, because I am a very how do I put this? I'm one of those people that has to watch the media, other media that goes to the book. So yeah, like this month in May, I read Good Girls Guide to Murder. I immediately went and got the season 1 of Good Girls Guide to Murder from my library, and I've already watched it. Like, I'm that type person. All right, last but definitely not least, the book I read was Hitchhikers by Chevy Stevens. I gave this book 4 stars. 4.5 stars, sorry. I gave it 4.5 stars. Now, this book is a slow burner, which is not the type of thrillers that I like to read. I like to read fast-paced thrillers, but this book literally had me to where I want a movie of this, but I want it like made in like a good 90s style Lifetime movie. I want that type of movie of this book. This book starts off in the summer of 1976. We're following Tom and Alice, a couple who have just experienced a devastating occurrence in their relationship, and they're just needing to get away from life. And so they get this Winnebago and they hit the Canadian highway. There's the Olympics of 76 going on. It's the summer. They just peace and love. 1976. They're just wanting to get away from life, woosha, and come back, right? Okay. So they stop at these campgrounds to rest, and they run into this young 18 and 20-year-old couple named Ocean and Blue. Ocean is heavily pregnant. They're obviously hitchhiking hippies. They're all alone. Alice and Tom have huge hearts. So they're like, stay. Why don't y'all come eat dinner with us? Why don't y'all set up your tent outside our Winnebago so y'all can feel safe? That turns into the next day. Why don't y'all eat breakfast with us? Lunch, dinner, go fishing with me, stay another night, etc., etc., etc. To eventually they're like, you know what? Let us help you get to the next town over. You know, that's the least we can do. Y'all seem like a nice enough couple. They feel bad. You know, Ocean's pregnant. And so they end up together. Ocean and Blue and Tom and Alice. Okay. So get you to the next town turns into, you know what? Just stay with us until you get to the next biggest city. We'll take you to the next biggest city. And then whatever y'all do from there is your business. That's the least we can do. You know, y'all seem like good people. Y'all are very helpful around here. And everything. Well, at some point, it is revealed that Ocean and Blue are not being completely honest about who they are and where they come from. From that moment on, dude, it is like a deadly game of survival. And it is so fucking intense. There's so many scenes that you're just gripping, like, oh my gosh, you feel like you're right fucking there in the scene. And yes, it takes some time to build up some shit and get to certain points, but once I was in it, I was in it. There was no looking back. I had to fucking know what was going to happen. And it does leave you satisfied at the end. It closes it all up, cleans it all up. You're not left at any point in the book where you're just like, that's it. I read all this shit for that. No, it cleaned up nice. Very intense, slow burn thriller. Psychological thriller that will have you feeling like you know these characters. You will get attached to some of these characters and be gritting your teeth like, oh my gosh, I can't even explain it. So yeah, I would recommend if you're okay with a slow burner. Okay, I didn't think I would be. I usually never am. I usually DNF after a certain point, But even though it was a slow burner, it still had my attention and I wanted to see where it was gonna go. So yeah, that is my April roundup. I'm sorry this is so late. Life has just been fucking lifing. What can I say? I'm at the point where I don't really have an audience, so I'm not really have the fire under my ass to like get shit done, but I still know I want to do it. So here we are. If you made it this far in the video, you're the real MVP. I appreciate you. Like this, subscribe. I don't know how I feel about you sharing. And before I get too awkward, I'm gonna let you go. So I'll see you in the next one, as they say.